that was the turning point where we started to really dislike the business that we had built. We realized how much it was relying on us, how much we were just putting in our time, and we had a good life, but it wasn't like this amazing thing that we thought it to be, which I think so many business owners do, right? They put their time and effort in and don't build out the systems and funnels, and then they get stuck with this job that they've created for themselves. The gym owner got like up me, essentially, not up me, but it was like this conflict of interest, and I was like, I didn't know I was going to be the one that got in trouble with what we were doing here. But essentially, we had this thing because we were early adopters. I think within the online space, we were accessible for so many. It grew pretty quickly without having like any real marketing plan or any real understanding of business or anything. And I was driving home, and I was 200 meters from home as the crow flies, and fell asleep at the wheel and collided with a guy. Like, hit him. It was just, someone was looking over me, man. Like, I collided where our utes scraped along the side. He had a alloy tray. It just ripped my car to shreds, dude. Like, it was crazy. And so my wife's literally about to pop, like 36, 37 weeks pregnant. And I was like, I can't call her. Like, I'm going to send her into labor.
Welcome to the Level Me podcast, where we rise to the level of those around us. And today we have Matthias from MatthiasTurner.com. Mate, welcome.
Thank you, dude. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm excited. Sorry I was making you wait out the front while I was in the shower getting ready today.
It was nice, getting nice and near me.
with a towel around my waist. But dude, you brought a compound bow, and we're going hunting next weekend, so I'm so excited.
It's cool. We're getting you in the outdoors and going for a proper adventure. Tapping and going wild.
How long have you been bow hunting for?
Just over 5 years, almost 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, literally got into it because I found out my family's property had some deer on it, and I had no idea that they were there beforehand. And pretty much my cousin's husband was already out there hunting with a rifle, and at the time you couldn't just get a rifle. Like, you have to go through a whole process, and it's good that that's the case, right? Not like America, you can just go buy one. But essentially I was like, well, what's the easiest barrier to entry? Like, how do we remove the barrier to entry? And that was going and buying a bow. So yeah, I went and bought a bow, and just became like this obsessive mind thing.
How long did it take before you got a deer?
2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a process, man. And that was even with help, like, meaning people had come and helped me whilst I was hunting, but also because I started the podcast so I could learn more about hunting. Like, it was getting tips and tricks from everyone along the way, and it was just until it kind of all fell into place that it actually happened. I shot other things before then, but the deer was like the pinnacle.
Yeah, but how's that's the reason you went to go and get it? Still takes you 2.5 years.
But it's funny. I think people are like, bow hunting is the most expensive way to get free meat.
It's so true.
Like, just about 3 years now, I've not really bought meat. Like, 95% of our meat has come from bow hunting.
No way, really?
It's crazy, right?
Wow.
So, like, I reckon, I don't know how much that would save us.
Yeah. Yeah, but how much have you spent on gear?
Yeah, not that much.
Do you? That's the one thing I'm nervous about. I'm fine with shooting them, but then like skinning them and like everything else like that.
It's a process, man, and I'm excited because it's like you get to really learn where your food comes from. And I was saying to the block that we're taking you to, I'm pretty excited for it because I think there's like, I don't want to jinx it, but like a 90% chance of us definitely getting you an animal, your very first like shooting, processing, bringing home a kill and feeding it with your family, and just being like, wow, I actually had to work really hard for that and had to do all that. And like, we're driving 10 hours essentially there and back, and then there's a whole 3-day process that we'll be there for, and you get to untap from everything, but then you have to like really focus in on what you're doing and start to be very conscious about the way that you're approaching it. And so there's a lot to learn that we're going to try condense in 3 days.
It's going to be fun. I'm just going to be like sitting on your tail, just watching everything you do, and take it slow. And it's going to be fun, man. I'm so excited. Cool. So from a business side of things, which is why we're here, you've got a really cool journey where you've kind of gone like, you see a lot of people do this, right? They get like, they love fitness. Obviously you go to the gym because you're a unit. Then you get into like PT and you kind of build your way up to there. And I think your first business was a nutrition business, right?
Correct. And yeah, so moved to Brisbane. I was in a band. We moved to Brisbane all together. And then we, like, not at the end of the band, but essentially I was like, you know, I really want to get into fitness. I really want to help people and keep going down that route. Did PT for a good few years. And my best friend at the time like we had every job together growing up. And he went and got a job doing CrossFit and started doing CrossFit and was preaching about, I'm like, no, CrossFit's gay. Like everyone does, right? Rejects it to start with. And then I started doing it. And I was like, this is actually so cool. And I was getting sick of the personal training model where it's like you're trading time for money and you're there. Like I built it out pretty well, but at the same time, it was only if I was there that I was earning the money. And I just got over the neediness of people. You become a psychologist, not a fitness trainer, essentially.
Yeah, I've got a few PTs in my gym and they're good friends, but mate, I see them. Like I went for a sunrise walk this morning and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning and I walked past the gym on the way and I could see that one of the PTs was there already, like training a client. I was like, man, that's early. Yeah. And then I end up getting in at like 10 o'clock because I go have a nice breakfast, go to the beach, and he's like, still there training a PT. I'm like, that's a true time for money trade.
And then you go home for lunch and then you're back in the afternoon. So you split shift. You're doing 10 plus hours probably a day on actual work. And then, it's just, when I moved to CrossFit, the whole thing that really drew me in was people were there because they wanted to be there. I was training a whole heap of people at the gym that they paid me because they didn't want to be there. They're like, how can you motivate me to get here? I'm like, I don't know. It becomes tough. It's when you're giving so much to someone all the time and that you want it more than them. That's when it's like, it just becomes a suck of your energy.
Yeah.
And so the group training at CrossFit just kind of really drew me in of like, hey, there's a way that you can really improve people and improve movement, because CrossFit had such a bad name at one point. It's like, how do you become a really good coach and make sure that people are moving really well? And then I ended up meeting my wife, who was the trainer who trained me to be a CrossFit trainer. The inception of it. And so her and my best friend Ollie, they were working on the seminars together, teaching the trainers. And so I was like, well, eventually, like long story short, she was living in Sydney. We met at a competition after she'd already trained me, and then that's when we finally hooked up. And then we had a long distance relationship for a bit. She moved up to Brisbane to be with me. Shut down her gym because it was at a stage of like, I either shut it down or I had to move and grow it. And she was working on the seminars, so she's like, it just made sense to do that as a progression. And she came up and she was already fully qualified nutritionist and was getting a lot of just work through the seminars, essentially. And I read The Virgin Way by Richard Branson. Before this, like this was literally 24 years of age, hadn't really read a book properly in my life before. Grew up thinking I was dyslexic, picked up this book and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to just apply myself to it and make sure that I get from start to finish of it. Turns out he was dyslexic, like actually prescribed dyslexia. I was not. I was just like assumed. And so I'm like, well, if you apply yourself to stuff, you can actually achieve things. Like I already knew you could do hard work, you could put your head to stuff and actually make it happen. So I read this book and he just starts talking about like how he started all these businesses and doing all this stuff. I'm like, wow, there's actually like a whole other world out there that I didn't really know of. And I saw this big gap where the CrossFit world early in the day didn't have much about nutrition. And my wife, not my wife now, but she was my girlfriend at the time, had like all these people kind of coming to her already. I'm like, why don't we take this online? Like, let's make this a thing that we can start to sell meal plans and start to help people on a larger scale. She was not for it. She was like, nope. Like a lot of the part that held her back to start with was because she worked for CrossFit headquarters and did so much around nutrition for CrossFit headquarters. She thought that they would push back on what she was doing. So we started building it up in the background and designed a website that sold onto meal plans, did a personalized meal plan for every single person as they came in the door, launched it, and the gym I was at was like, that's a conflict of interest. I was like, the gym owner got like up me essentially, not up me, but it was like this conflict of interest. And I was like, I didn't know I was going to be the one that got in trouble with what we were doing here. But essentially we had this thing because we were early adopters. I think within the online space we were accessible for so many, it grew pretty quickly without having like any real marketing plan or any real understanding of business or anything. And we pretty much, I was in the deep end of like going from personal training, running your own sort of business there, not really much complications for personal, but running a business at all. To then having to like figure out, okay, online space, I was computer illiterate, having to figure out then also like, how do you run a business and do that side of things. And so we got in on some business coaching, but one of the big things they never did was teaching marketing. And so I kind of started going down this route of like, how can I learn to market really quickly and how can I progress this as fast as possible? And I came across the I Love Marketing podcast. Have you heard of that before? Joe Polish and Dean Jackson. And their first 100 episodes are like so gold. It's worth going back and listening to. I think it's from maybe 2012 or something. Like they started. And these guys are really big within the direct response world. And essentially I just kind of figured out from piecing together a lot of their stuff, like this is how we can start to attract more people and start to build lead generators and bring more people into the business. And essentially they are always talking about copywriting. And I'm like, didn't really know much about it apart from, okay, it's what we're putting out to the world. And they always talked about Gary Halbert, who's like one of the best known copywriters ever to live, essentially. He's got so much really cool content out there, sold a lot of stuff for a lot of people, boring products all the way through to like really great products. And so I started going down that rabbit hole as well, like discovering him a bit more. And essentially we ended up building out these lead generators that would bring people to us that would then funnel them into the business. And I was like, well, how do we make sure this is all working? And that's when I got into email marketing. And one of my friends who was also in business, he said, you should do this course, which is talking about mini courses through email marketing. So how can you launch a course through email marketing to then keep bringing people in? And so it just kind of like, we end up having this big umbrella company, which is the Chief Life. And then we had all these little elements coming off it. So we had like Chief Dads, which is focused on dads. We had Chief Mums, which is focused on mums. We had, we went and did like wellness in the workplace and did stuff for, funnily enough, Virgin. And we did stuff for like big building companies and stuff. And then pretty much built out this brand, not to like huge, but like multi-six figures. The problem is that we built it where it was so reliant on the work we were doing. We were still selling a product that meant we were doing so much work. And we did have a coaching model as well. And we had some returning revenue, like recurring revenue streams coming in, but it was always just so reliant on us, me and my wife. Despite us having a team, they were doing the work that we were doing and we were just kind of passing it off to them. So, but then COVID hit and it really just changed things a lot because we had these big contracts with these big businesses doing their like wellness in the workplace stuff. And literally it was like, oh, well, we can't really do that anymore. And we had nothing in the contract to say, what happens when a pandemic comes? Yeah. And so like literally just these contracts just got shut off within a week. We're like, oh, wow. So we were doing yoga, we were running meditations, we were doing like 12-week programs within that for like nutrition and lifestyle programs and stuff. And it all just got shut down and taken away. We're like, oh, wow. And so it was like, I think that was just a massive hit. And that was the start of 2020 essentially. Over the next few years, we still did well to bring our way back up and keep boosting the business. But I think it was like, that was the turning point where we started to really dislike the business that we had built. You're like, we realized how much it was relying on us, how much we were just putting in our time and we had a good life, but it wasn't like this amazing thing that we thought it to be, which I think so many business owners do, right? They put their time and effort in and don't build out the systems and funnels. And then they get stuck with this job that they've created for themselves. And yeah, it was actually, so my first daughter was born in 2019 and we were doing all these wellness bits and pieces. And I remember, pretty crazy story. I was driving home. So the gym owners, I was still working at the gym. Gym owners were away in America. So I was filling in all these extra hours plus doing computer work all throughout the day. So just pulling big ass days. And they were in America and I was driving home and I was 200 meters from home as the crow flies and fell asleep at the wheel and collided with a guy. Like hit him. It was just, someone was looking over me, man. Like I collided where our utes scraped along the side. He had a alloy tray. It just ripped my car to shreds, dude. Like it was crazy. And so my wife's literally about to pop, like 36, 37 weeks pregnant. And I was like, I can't call her. Like I'm going to send her into labor if I call. I'm sitting on the side of the road. Like once I realized what happened, I ran down to see if he was all good. Ambo started rocking up and stuff. People just flocked from everywhere. This is a corner of a pretty busy road in Brisbane in Morningside. And all these people just started rocking up and like helping us. It's amazing like to see the active people. And I'm like, I can't call my wife. So I called one of my friends and I just burst into tears. I was like, dude, like, and it was just like that point where I realized how overwhelmed we were. And then, yeah, I called my wife and she didn't answer. I called like 8 more times and she called me back. She's like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, I'm all right. I'm around the corner. I don't know if you heard a bang, but yeah, I think that was like, it was like the beginning of the end for us. And I started to be like, okay, well, I'm literally putting so much time and effort into this thing and it's good-ish, but not what we want it to be. I think I said to Stace at that time, I was like, give me a year and I'll change things around and work towards it, built out some pretty cool funnels, but then realized we just didn't like it anymore. I was in that stage of like, I don't know, we're still helping people, we're still getting great results. You still get emails through from people like, man, thank you so much. I just lost 15 kilos, 5 kilos, 20 kilos, whatever it was. Like all these like testimonials coming in, which is amazing. That was the thing that kept us going. But it was just, we started to build a resentment to the business. And we're like, well, what do we do here?
What was the resentment? Do you feel like it was because you were working so hard in the business? Do you feel like you were the face of the business and that's kind of why? Or
I think so. Like we had not pigeonholed ourselves, but we had made it purely that we were the sole and only thing of the business. We were the only things that were driving it forward. We were the only things that we hadn't built a team. And I put a post up about this the other day. One of the biggest mistakes I think we made was we got people to do the same jobs that we could already do, rather than hiring for the other roles that we didn't know how to do. So we would hire someone to come and do my job, and then I would go and try to learn to do the next thing. And it's like, really, that's the slow way. That's a slow, long road, rather than going, okay, how can I hire someone to help the business grow, help to build out better funnels, help to build out better systems, do all the things that a business needs that we hadn't done essentially yet. And so we kind of put ourselves in this corner, and it was just like, yeah, it was not a horrible thing, but it was like a really cool learning experience. Essentially, it was like 7 years of business eventually that we built to, that was like a massive apprenticeship into what I now do now.
Yeah, it's have you read the E-Myth Revisited?
Yes.
Yeah, that's such a classic example.
Definitely.
Like I remember reading that, and I had spite when I was reading. I was like, that's not my business. Like I'm not going to be like that. Yeah. I can see how what you just said is so accurate. Like most people build this business and they feel like it's what they love. It feels like they want to do, but then they get so stuck and they can't get themselves out of that role or what they're focusing on or what they're trying to, or they become, the face of the business, and it becomes impossible to like detach from that.
Definitely.
So it's crazy to hear that story, man. There's a lot in there. So from like the transition from PT to CrossFit, was there any element of like, I'm going from training one-on-one to now I can train one-to-many, or was it just, I love CrossFit and I'd rather do that?
No, it was a lot of that, and knowing that you're going to have so many personalities. You're not going to, the fact that you had a group of people who are now wanting to be there, like that was pretty big as well. Like I kind of touched on before, but I think the element of it was like I was earning good cash being a PT, and then I was going back to not earning as good a cash being a CrossFit coach, but it didn't matter because I was happier. Yeah. And I still did some PTs, but it was like the main transition was pretty much full-time CrossFit.
Okay. And then how long between like PT, CrossFit, and then realizing that there was the nutrition element as well?
Yeah, I feel like...
Was it quite quick, or like did it take a few?
It might have been like a year or two, because it was like until I kind of met my wife and stuff.
Yeah.
So I did my course in maybe August 2012 to start being a CrossFit coach.
Okay.
Then we started the business in 2015. So almost 2 and a bit years.
And when you got kicked out of the gym, like not kicked out, but when they said this is a bit of a conflict of interest, did you take it online, or did you go to a different gym, or like how did?
Do you mean the CrossFit stuff?
The nutrition stuff.
Nutrition stuff. That was So that was the breaking point for him, where he was like, you're launching this thing, it's a conflict of interest to what we do here, which I didn't see because we were doing CrossFit and we were doing nutrition online. So I was like, how's the crossover? It turned out he wanted to start a nutrition thing, which he started later down track. Okay. So I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. It just wasn't communicated at the time.
Yeah.
And so, we put our stuff all online, and that was the switching point for that, but also kind of the skyrocket part for the online business.
Well, it makes it scalable, right?
Yeah.
Were you still doing like individual plans though?
Everything was individual.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that was a bit of the downfall from the start, is it was like every bit of work that came in still required us to do more work. And it wasn't until later when I was talking about the email courses and stuff where I was like, okay, we can start to build our evergreen products here and sell them on repeat and just keep doing that stuff. And it was interesting because I started emailing more to our list, and we built up this list, and we'd have like, over the time we built up like a 7,000 person list, but we started with 1,000 person list, and I would email them and be like, okay, what am I going to talk about today? How can I translate this into nutrition? And we started doing like 15K, 20K months just from our email list alone from 1,000 people. I'm like, hold up, there's something really within this that you can push. And people were also replying saying how much they love reading the email and how much they really like the point of views that you're putting across too. That actually made sense for me. Now I can apply that to me and my nutrition, and that's like a transition point for you. So it was interesting because I was like, okay, well, there's a lot in the writing, there's a lot in the storytelling and bits and pieces there. And then eventually I went and did a talk at a business mastermind just about email marketing and what we were doing within our business. And there was this removalist owner in there. He's like, oh, do you reckon this could work for me? I'm like, of course. And I said like exactly the structure I do for it. And he's like, can you come do it for me? I'm like, okay. And so I went and did it. And I think like he paid me a certain amount of money. I'm like, wow, that's actually a high leverage position. Like moving into the stage where we had a young kid and I was working my ass off. Like by this stage, we were doing 14, 16 hour days on computer. I'm like, oh my God, like it was tiring. And I essentially got to the phase where I was like, well, I've got this high leverage position that I could potentially leverage, or I could keep selling these things and moving along slowly, but not tracking as fast as probably I want to. And so I went after the email marketing a bit more and just started putting it out. And on that same talk, I actually landed another client as well. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I just kept pushing for it and started landing all these new clients, and then started pushing into the health and nutrition world in particular, because that's what I'd spent so much time with our business. And I was like, well, hold up. I can now not only leverage this high position skill that I've got, but also start to leverage these other people's lists and build and help out more people. So I'm still getting the desired outcome of helping people and helping them to transition their lives and get healthier and fitter and whatever else. But then the other side of it is you're also now not having to do and all the delivery stuff. So it's now, how can you write good emails that sell? How can you improve your copywriting skills and start to help these other brands to do bigger and better things? And then that transitioned into ads and video scripts and sales pages and the whole thing. I pretty much went and did like multiple crash courses. I mean, still always constantly learning.
Well, everything's changing, so you have to learn.
100%, yeah.
That's crazy. I feel like, when you're going from a direct to consumer model to now selling business to business, like I remember in our business, we had both options and both ways to go.
Yeah.
And it's always just dragged me down the business route, like selling business to business. When you say high leverage, I mean, obviously you're talking about the high leverage skill, but was that like a kind of a moment for you to go, okay, well, instead of selling a $50 nutrition plan, I don't know what you charge, but whatever it was, now I can charge, $500 to do a copywriting email or something like that.
It's like I can spend less time, earn more money, and it's like a tick, win-win.
Yeah, and you're selling to businesses, which are people who have money to spend, like it's a reward for them.
Exactly, it's such a bloodline for businesses is bringing in more cash. So it's like, hey, now I become this person where it's like, I can help you to bring in more money. What are we actually trying to do here, and how can we piece it together? And then it's going back into the actual strategy side of things of like I still love email. Email is so much fun, and it's kind of what I love to do most of. I still do other things, like I write video scripts for a 9-figure company and stuff. Like it's pretty cool to see that side, but the email it's fun and you can get so much great results from it. I think brands will spend so much money to acquire a customer and then do absolutely nothing with it. And it's like, okay, well, if your lifetime value of someone is based off of the first average order value that you get, how do we then double, triple, quadruple that? And it's by selling to them again. And that's what email marketing can do. It's like, okay, right now we can spend $50 to acquire a customer because our product's $60. We make $10 profit, let's say, as a basis. But then we sell to them again, make them a multi-time buyer through leading them onto the next product. All of a sudden, you've now got $100 coming in the door. You've got a $40 profit for this company. It's like, it starts to make a lot of sense when you can really transition not only the front end, but the back end and make the back end work for them. It's kind of like the pipes in a house. You don't know how it works, but it's working. And so the same sort of concept for email marketing. Once you set up the automations and help it work, it will be a tap. You turn it on and it starts to deliver.
It's crazy how personal an email feels compared to like a YouTube video or like an Instagram video or something like that, right?
Definitely.
Like some of the best copywriters out there. I've read some amazing emails, man. Like
100%.
And even like your content's really good. I don't think I've read one of your emails, but like the content, it's just insane. And it makes you feel like, I don't know. I don't know really understand why it's so different, but it must just be because it lands in your inbox and it's your,
Definitely.
some people use their inbox as like a to-do list sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it feels like it's super personal.
Yeah. I think when you look back over some of like the greats of copywriting, they used to talk about how people would collect their junk mail and hold it over the bin. Like, I want to read this, I don't want to read this. I want to read this, I don't want to read this. I think email is now like that new version of junk mail. It's like almost if you go back to that lumpy mail, that's where you get really, really awesome results. But still within the email inbox, it's like, how do you stand out? How do you be different? How do you make it so people just love your emails and it doesn't matter what you send, they're going to read it anyway. I mean, a lot of personality brands can start to do that and they start to deliver on that. And I think like the whole Hormozy thing of delivering your best content, giving them good stuff for free, make your free stuff better than your paid stuff, or the transition into the paid stuff. And it's really kind of cool, and seeing under so many different brands, the hood of different brands, and seeing what they do. And I think that the nice thing to know is also like no brand has it sorted. Like no matter the size, 6, 7, 8 figures, or 9 figures even, like there's always chaos. It's always the way. It's just like, how can we make less chaos and make it really work for you?
When you say you're working for like a 9-figure business, that's pretty crazy, man. It's a big contract. Do you feel like, what's the difference between working for like a 6-figure business and a 9-figure business?
Like direct contacts and who you talk to. Like this brand just has more structures, more team. Essentially, I'm within this window of one part of the team of their marketing crew that I report to, and that's kind of it. So they hire me just for literally hooks for video. So coming up with content that creates the most curiosity for them to then lead into the rest of their video ads. And so essentially it's like finding what ads they already have in place, and then figuring out what hooks we can put at the start to try and grab the attention to then lead them into a winning VSL or something like that. But yeah, essentially in regards to the layout of the difference, it's literally like instead of talking to the business owner directly, you're talking to a team member of the marketing or something like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's probably not always the case, because sometimes the business owner or the CEO will always be involved in the marketing if that's their specialty. If not, then you probably won't hear from them. So it just depends on the business,
who you want to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but what does make a good email that someone would read?
I think what a lot of brands do incorrectly is they try to put too much into one email. So you think about, let's just take a newsletter, for example. I'm not saying newsletters are bad, but you've got 5 different links to 5 different things. One person clicks the very first link, they're gone from your email, right? They don't see the rest of the concept. A lot of what the direct response world does is essentially like one concept, one overarching theme that helps them to get from point A to point B, which is A, reading the email, to B, buying your stuff. And so I think as a concept, that's what a lot of people do incorrectly. Is like, how can I put everything into this right now and get this great result? But it's like, you look at Instagram Reels, you look at TikTok Reels, anything like that that's kind of attention grabbing. It's usually one theme and one theme only, right? Same concept, put it into an email. One theme only. How can we help to progress them? The other side of it is it's communication, right? And so I think so many brands are like, how can we showcase how smart we are with what we say? But the average reading level is like a 5th grade across the world. So it's like you're talking to, and it doesn't matter if you're selling to a business owner or to your average everyday Joe, you should still write in a lower reading level anyway. Like I aim for a 3rd grade or 5th grade reading level, because it's concise, it's direct to the message, it's getting your point across, and they can understand it no matter what level they're at. And simplicity works.
Well, it applies to everyone. Everyone can read it and understand it. Yeah. And even for like the super smart individuals who might want a bit more intellectual copy, sometimes it's nice to just have something that is easy on the brain and it's easy to read.
And I think email is fast. Like someone opens the email, they're scrolling. So they just want to read over it, see what's really, really kind of there. And the first line of an email is really important, as is a PS. If you're putting something in the PS, like people, honestly, they'll look at it. If you watch the heat map a lot of time, spend some time here, scroll to the very bottom, read that little chunk, and then scroll back up if they're interested. So that's pretty interesting. I think the other side of it is that many, not all brands, but a lot of brands don't know the individuals who they're talking to. So they're putting out content, but don't know if it's actually interesting to the person. So it's like, if you can really understand who your avatar is, who your person or persons that you're selling to, not any brand's going to probably have one avatar. Some will, but some will have like multiple variations. And it's like, how can we then talk to those individuals? How can we meet them where they're at and say, because as business owners and generally as business owners, you think that your product is amazing, it's going to help this person. So how do we get them over the line to help them and help them to get the results? How can we future pace them? How can we show them the things that are possible if they actually apply themselves to it? So I think, single point focus, and also understanding your avatar, really understanding them. What are the objections they have? What are the things that they do day in, day out? When are the times that they're going to read the emails? What are the things that they're thinking about? How can you meet them there and be like, hey, it's going to be all right. Like, we can do this. Yeah.
For the copy, do you have a preference to like long form, short form? Do you keep it really tight? I've heard there's this like 9-worded email thing.
9-word emails,
master.
Yeah, so that's Dean Jackson. So that going back to I Love Marketing. Dean Jackson created the 9-word email. I love that. I put that into most brands I ever work with. I'll have some form of the 9-word email because it's just like a, hey, are you interested in this still? And you're just starting a conversation, and it's literally like, can we help you solve this problem? Are you still interested? Yes or no? And then it gets a reply, and you just start the conversation with them. So the 9-word email works really well. I think in regards to email, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do it. I'll write 2,000 word emails and people will read every word of it and they'll sell like crazy. But then I'll write a 100-word email and it will sell like crazy. So it's just depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it. There's different structures and flows that you can use for each one. And it's just about testing and figuring out what your list actually really likes.
Yeah, it's funny because like sometimes I really like things really simple and easy to read. So sometimes I'll send an email out and I'll just keep it really basic.
Yeah.
But then there's so many other people that like would prefer to have so much more detail and go into, extravagant situation. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, you got to kind of be applicable and apply to everyone in that category. Yeah,
I coach in a copywriting group, and one of the things I always tell them is like, you can't think that they understand what you mean. So you have to actually spell it out. If you're going from point A to point Z and expecting them to understand what B, C, D, E, and all the rest is, that's where you lose people straight away. Because it's like, hold up, you're talking about this concept and you jump to this. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And so, I think just also really spelling things out and making it simple for them. That's a big part as well.
So you've completely transitioned out of the nutrition business?
100%, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how
so
long?
That was 2022. We shut it down, started 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
So COVID had put a bit of a spanner in the works.
Yeah.
You tried to crawl your way back, but...
I mean, we did.
Okay.
Like, we still did a good last year, but it was the fact that we were like, we're just not driving on it anymore. And so it was kind of the decision point for us. We're like, once again, I noticed that I could work less, earn more. I'm like, tick, tick, young family. Like, I get to enjoy a lot of time with my girls, which I'm really excited for. Like, it's life by design in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a photo with you having lunch with them the other day or something. And you're like, I'm so blessed that I get to do this every day or whatever.
Yeah,
like
100%.
It's so nice.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the girls. It's sick. I mean, you've got a similar lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty. I mean, I think about it. Probably not all the time, but it's like, how long do you actually have with them? Like, I think there's a Jordan Peterson piece, and he talks about you've got them till 7. And then they don't want to be with you anymore. Like, not necessarily, but it's like, how can I keep them involved in my life and me involved in their life for as long as possible and actually be a good role model for them? Like, how can I be the best dad for them and encourage them to be the best humans for themselves as well? That kind of does cross my mind a little bit. It's like, hey, this could be the last cuddle. This could be the last time. Like, yesterday we went and jumped in puddles together, me and my oldest. I'm like, this could be the last time we do this, but you never know. So I'm going to make fun. I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and my wife was overseas. I had a sore back, like I hurt my back pretty much from walking the girls around the block with their scooters, having to drag my youngest around the block with the scooters. And the next day, my oldest is like, can we take our scooters? And the youngest one's like, yeah, Dad, let's take our scooters. And I was like, no. And I was like, hold up. You're literally like holding the key to their fun right now. And you're just being a grouch because you got a sore back and saying no. I'm like, nah, stuff that. I'm like, grab your scooters, girls. Like, it was just interesting, that quick like thought process I went through within like 20 seconds, or no, not even like milliseconds, right?
It's good that you saw yourself in that element though, and you were kind of like, all right, how do I address this and change the situation? Because not a lot of dads would, right?
No, exactly. I think it's like always that little extra effort, right? Like, you think about all the best times you have with your parents is when they're with you. All they want is your attention, right? They just want to spend time with you. You're the light of their eye at the moment. So how can you keep that? And how can you keep being, I guess, their inspiration for fun and their light of their eye? I think it's it's a part that so many people miss because they're so focused on work and paying bills and doing those things.
Well, that's such a good thing to juggle as well. I think a lot of people get stuck in their work and use it as an excuse of like, well, I'm doing it for the girls. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where
definitely.
They don't want your money.
No,
they just want to spend time with you.
100%.
You know? So you've transitioned out. You did one speech at an event and you get 2 clients. So were they the first 2 clients?
The first 2 clients. And then I think it was probably a month or 2 later, I landed my next, which was like an ongoing retainer. They're like, we want you to run our email list. And
And were you, so obviously you had the first 2 and you kind of like understood what that process would look like and like maybe potentially change your business, or did you immediately go, okay, I definitely want to go down this route and move into this?
It was like the eye opener for me where I was like, this ticks the boxes for what I've been chasing of working less, earning more. Essentially, like how can I transition into being the family person that I want to be? Like be with the girls and enjoy that time, still enjoy business and still help many people. And it kind of it showed me straight away. I was like, oh, and one of the brands is a CBD oil brand that I landed on that first talk, and I was like, okay, well, there's definitely space within the health niche that I can go down. And so I went into a group called Copy Accelerator, and it was essentially, as it says, accelerate your copy and learn how to be really good at funnels and everything. Did some training with them, and essentially one of the biggest niches in the world is health. So I was like, there's just an endless supply of businesses that need help with copywriting and transitioning. Like really customer journey is so important. So many people, like if someone walks into your shop front, you would expect that you would greet them, right? So many people don't do that when it comes to the online world. And if they enter in their email, for some reason, it's because they're interested in what you have going on. So how do you meet and greet them and continue that conversation with them and continue to showcase and send them on to the next products to buy and whatever else? Otherwise, you're out of sight, out of mind, and you've lost your hot prospect. So, yeah.
So how did you score that third client that was kind of reoccurring?
I think I did a cold email. I emailed out to them. Actually, no, it was someone. So it was a cold email approach, but it was through Instagram. It was someone that I knew through the CrossFit world, and I just said, "Hey, man, I've been a part of your list for a long time and realized you're not sending. Is this something you wanted to do more of?" And he just hit me back. He's like, "We're actually looking exactly for that," and it was just a straight transition in.
It's crazy how you can you as a customer acknowledge that there was a problem there, and they're like, here's the solution. Do you want me to solve it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I teach copywriters all the time. Like, hey, if you want to get a gig, like look at your own emails that you're subscribed to and see who's not doing it, and how can you do it more for them. That's
crazy. And so obviously at that point you kind of knew, okay, well, this is something that I want to do and pursue. Was there like kind of a personal shift for you in terms of like social presence and all that sort of stuff?
There definitely was. I think for both me and my wife, it was like acknowledging that it wasn't a failure, that we were shutting down the business as well. And like because we were so much the face of it, we could have white labeled everything and sold on the structures of what we were selling. But I was like, there's just so much time and effort and work in that could literally take us another 6 months to do. So it was like, I think that was a big part, is like, have we failed here or have we not? Like, hold up, we're transitioning because we want to, yet for some reason it feels like you're having to admit that you failed. And it's like, but yes, we might not have built out like the best structured brand or whatever, but we still built a multi-six-figure business. We still built out, we still have a very comfortable life of what we'd done. So how do we then transition and make sure that we're using everything that we've got moving forward? And so, like I said before, it's kind of like the apprenticeship, stepping into it. And then I think so many copywriters think of copywriting as freelance work. And I'm like, no, hold up. This is a business. Like, I'm operating as a business. How do I keep moving forward like that? How do I bring in like the knowing and loving of a business into the other businesses that I'm working for and making sure that I'm doing a good job for them as well. So yeah, I think, and we were talking about this before, but I think that's also what makes me somewhat appealing for the business owners, because they're like, oh, you've been through this before. You understand, like you've been in the trenches, as people would say, which is not really a great saying. Right? You think about a trench.
It's not a great place to be.
Literally like in the war trenches, and he's like, oh, that's not really the same, but but yeah.
It's a good analogy though.
Yeah.
And so you switched and you started to pursue a different course of action. And so now, how do you get your sales now? Like, how do you do your marketing and sales now? Has it completely changed, or is it relatively the same?
Like literally for me now, it's networking, staying in front of mind. I do a lot of just social media posts, just talking about what I do. And it's interesting how many people then come to me and they're like, this is really interesting. Like, tell me more. Like, I literally have guys who are in business development for brands reach out to me and they're like, bro, tell me more about what you do. Like, how does this all work? And just, I think it's just, it's also like another curiosity element, right? That you're bringing to what you do within your own social media stuff. At times I'll do cold email outreach and stuff if I need to, or cold DMs if I need to, which I don't necessarily love doing. And so it's like, for me, if I post on my wall every day, people come to me and it just kind of continues to grow. Like I said, it's kind of like, at times you're the lifeline for a business. They're in a stage where they need cash flow. You can bring cash flow in. So, I'm actually, then we went out for dinner the other night with Carl, and Carl said to me, you should, I just said, I'm thinking about starting this course because I've been going to a few different masterminds and presenting and seeing that so many businesses are just not using email at all, or they're using it and just not using it very often. Like a good example, I got some friends who run a coffee business, and I was like, you guys do a fair bit of emailing. Like, how's it going? They're like, oh, we make like $5,000 every time we send, but we don't really know what to do. I'm like, send more. Like, it seems to make a lot of sense to me, but so many people are so scared of doing that. And they started sending more and they started earning more. I'm like, interesting how it works, right? But in that same thing, I'm like, how can I essentially show people what I do without them having to go through and do it, like hire me, for instance? And so I'm starting, based on that conversation we had with Carl, I was thinking about doing literally what I do as a course, and launching it. He's like, I'll send that to my list. I'm like, okay, great. So that's kind of my next, it's the thing that I'm working on at the moment, as well as the brands I work with. But I'm going to drop a course soon. This is like first time saying it publicly, so I have to make it happen now. It's a real thing.
That's the best thing about stating things publicly, though.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
held to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think you'll do really well, and I think it's needed because not a lot of people, like for me as a business owner, like I want to learn more about it. I want to understand more about it without like going down and having to hire someone straight away. Just understand, okay, well, this is actually the way to do it, and this is how to set it out, and this is what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And then I'll just get to the point where I'm like, well, I can't be bothered to do this. I'm just going to pay someone else to do it.
Yeah,
So it's a great tool for you as well.
Exactly right. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing a copywriting course. Like, I didn't want to just be another make money online guru guy. Like, there's so many of them out there. I'm like, oh, it just seems like such. I say that. I shouldn't say that. But I was like, you know what? What's actually something that's really valuable and something that, as a business owner, that would make just so much sense is, okay, well, here's how you can come in, and this is the structure you should follow. This is the big framework of what you have going on. How do you make it work really well for you, no matter what business you're in? Because most businesses can deal with better communication. So it's just a great way to nurture people, hold their hand, take them on to the next product, and keep selling to them, keep them within your ecosystem. So you keep helping them through what you have to offer.
When you say send more, what do you think is a good frequency to send an email?
I mean, so a good example of this is I was writing for a brand that was sending 3 emails a week. Like, this is outside of their automations. We're just sending 3 times a week. And I just said, do you think we could send more and see how we go? And we literally doubled their sales by doubling our emails. So it's like, is there a right or wrong? I don't know. One of the brands I work for, I realized that Mondays, and this is where looking at your numbers really makes so much sense. Mondays, and this is a UK brand, Mondays for them is like the sale day. No matter what email we're sending, Mondays people bought. And so I'm like, well, why don't we just send another email on Mondays and see what happened? We doubled what they were getting on the Monday, which is like 50% of what they were earning for the week. So literally we're now getting, it's kind of like 150% from what we were getting just by sending twice on a Monday. And we just do that every week now. And the second email is always a benefit-driven email. Like, it's good content where I'm monitoring the, you got to think of it. I mean, Will Wang's a good, the way he explains it is like, it's a cookie jar, right? So you've got a cookie jar, and if you're selling to them constantly, you're pulling out of the cookie jar. How do we make sure that we're not just pulling from the cookie jar? How do we put back into the cookie jar? And that's where your good content and sending more of that as well is also really important, which is like the Alex Hormozy or your, Gary V, like the jab, 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 right hook. So how can you jab, 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 meaning give, and then put in your offer every once in a while.
Ask every now and
But within saying that, I'll still do it like a soft sell. So PS, by the way, if you want more of this, buy here. Yeah.
That's crazy. Saying like 2 emails on a Monday. You wouldn't think it. No, it's just about understanding the audience, right?
It is.
If Monday's your sell day, then like,
why not?
Just continue to do what works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the 3 times a week to 6 times a week, like doubling the emails. So you would, like, if you said to me, I'm going to start sending 3 emails a week to all your clients, I'm starting to freak out.
Nervous.
Like, it's a bit much. Like, I don't know if they might get annoyed or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if you double it, then
yeah, exactly. Like, how often do you send now?
Oh, probably every week.
Yeah. Okay. So you try with 2.
Yeah.
A week and see if it changes anything.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is there's rules within like deliverability where if you send too much, you're going to go into spam. And if you don't have your record set up correctly, like in your cPanel, which is like tech talk for behind the scenes, to show Google, Yahoo, whatever the email that you're sending to, that you're a real person, that you're a real business, and it's responding to your URL and everything, like you'll get into spam really quickly, which is really bad. Like, deliverability is also really important, and there's rules that you need to follow within that. But you can start getting better deliverability just by sending more as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, and I remember I went to a CMA last year or something like that, and they were talking about there was a question from the audience talking about like how specific emails that are targeting a specific niche or type of person can feel like junk straight away, and like people would just delete it or couldn't be bothered to read it or whatever it might be. How do you go about trying to avoid, like, number one, getting red flagged, which you just kind of highlighted on, but also say someone's just reading the email and they're kind of like, oh, I don't want to read this, or like it seems like junk or spam.
Yeah.
Like, what are some things that you do to try and avoid that?
So I think this is where it's important for segmentation within your list. So thinking about, okay, there's a very easy example. Who's a buyer, who's not a buyer? And what should we send to buyers versus what should we send to someone who's never bought from us before? So you shouldn't necessarily send them the same thing, right? Okay. Say we're sending them to a buyer. What's something that we can give them that moves them on to the next step, or that just keeps them within our ecosystem and keeps them happy? And a lot of the time is like, how can we drive curiosity? How can we add benefit to them? So if they're using a service of yours and you just want to keep them there using your service, showing them better ways to use the service. Like if I don't know, if it was these bottles, for instance, like, this is how you should recycle it after you've drank the water so you can get the best benefit from it. I don't know, that's a horrible example, but just trying to think of, like, essentially you're just trying to nurture and engage them more and more, and doing that through benefit-driven stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool, man. And have you seen I mean, you've been in the game for a little while, but have you seen the space and industry change quite a bit over the time that you've been in it? And like
AI, dude.
Oh yeah,
AI is massive, right? And you know what's crazy? I talked to the mastermind the other day, and I gave them all this stuff with AI on, like, how they could just build out more content with it. And none of these business owners were using AI. I was like, whoa, like, I'm so in depth in it because I pay to be, like, at the front of mind and make sure that I'm doing all the stuff that I can, so I don't get left behind. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that aren't using it yet, and there's elements of AI that just spits out exactly the same stuff every single time. So if you're just using AI and not editing it, you're not changing it, and it all just starts to sound the same. And so that's where it's tough. And I think it's changed the world in the sense of, you have to be better. Like, even as a business owner sending emails, you have to be better. Yeah. It's just like, you can't just send the boring old stuff anymore.
Yeah, well, there's two elements to the AI, right? It's like you chuck something in there and then you get like the generic same response back. And it's like, well, you don't just want to copy and paste that and send that out.
No.
But then also, how do you, like, you know, help it to aid you to build a base template, or like a base build out of what you need, and then customize it to that.
Yeah.
With the stuff that you're doing with AI, you kind of like chucking in some stuff that you've done before, and said, like, this is an example of something that we would want to recreate.
That definitely works really well. Like, giving you examples of, this is the voice that we're using or whatever, that helps a lot for it. Priming it, like, these are the types of people we're selling to. What are the objections they might have? Or even, this is the product we're selling. Who are the people that buy this sort of stuff? And understanding, once again, going back to what we said ages ago, like, understanding your market is really important, meeting them where they're at, and then helping them to get over the line that way. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's increased your efficiency? Like, you're no longer building stuff from scratch. You kind of
definitely.
like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing, because I'm like, I don't know where the copywriting world is going, because AI is getting so good. It's like, what happens in another 5 years' time? Like,
yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, like if you see the AI models now, it's like, you can sense what they're doing. You ask them a question, they respond. And you have to really customize and tailor what you're asking and how you ask it to get a customized response.
You still need a good leader to lead it, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think there'll always be an element. It's like the farming industry, right? Like, we used to all be out there with forks and pitch knives, and, you know, doing pitchforks, doing it pitch knives. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. Doing it by hand, and then the machines come, and like, yes, you know, it's not, you don't have 20 people out in the field anymore. You might have 2 machines, but you still got to have the machine operators doing it. So it just becomes about becoming the best machine operator that you can, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. And I think, like, I build out bots and stuff for the customers I'm working with, but it rarely ever gives you good enough content that you can just copy and paste. Like, it really is a rarity to get that. Well, it'll do very well, but you still copy chief it, like, edit it to make it better.
They'd still want you to come in and, you know, oversee it. And
well, that's the thing, like, structure and making, I think in the element of copywriting, why I always tell copywriters that I'm coaching, like, you need to be more than just a copywriter. Like, how can you be more of a full stack marketer and understand marketing, understand, like, for instance, just operating a whole email system? How can you take over that for a business owner, so you are like a one-stop shop for them instead? But yeah, it's the part of it.
So you're doing a bit of coaching as well for copywriters?
Well, that's just from groups I've been in. They just kind of saw that I was doing well, and they're like, hey, can you teach our people now? So, yeah, I mean, that's part of what I'll do, is this course will offer that as well. I'm like, I'm already doing it. May as well do it for brand owners. Like, hey, if you've got content that you want looked over, then send it to me and I'll look over it and tell you what you should do to make it better.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's good. It seems like it's good that you've, like, picked your niche. Yeah. And then you're doing little elements all around it as well.
Yeah, trying.
You do really well. Cool, man. Any other business ventures or?
Not really. I mean, what's interesting is the more I get into the business world, the more people ask me about bow hunting. The more I go down that, and we were talking about before, like there's definitely a business I could put in it, but I don't know. I just love bow hunting. I love getting out and adventuring, and it's just so freeing for, for everyone who does it, but men's mental health in particular, getting them away from their phones, from their computers, getting them out into the wild and experiencing nature and how transformative that can be. It's really powerful. And it's kind of like what keeps me driving the podcast as well. I'm like, I've literally had men reach out to me and say, dude, I used to be like a heavy alcoholic, or like I was addicted to drugs. And I found bow hunting has like really transitioned my whole world. Like I'm no longer, like I've been sober for how many years or whatever. And your podcast has really helped me along the way. I'm like, fuck, it's really cool to see that as well. And it's just a hobby. It's like a joy, love of labor in a sense, that podcast. But
do you think it will become your primary thing at some point in time?
I don't know. There's that whole concept of don't make your hobby your work.
Yeah.
You can lose love. And I actually that was another part of the umbrella was I launched a bow hunters course, like a bow hunters challenge, which is all nutrition for bow hunting, get better, get fitter, get healthier. And it went really well. Like, I don't know, probably did like 30K through that. Like it was a good little course. Yeah. In the sense of it helped a lot of people as well. Like a lot of people lost a lot of weight and stuff. But at the same time, I was like, this is really becoming like, it's just transitioning that love into, labor.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I actually shut that down completely as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's good though. I think you want to keep it your baby, right? Your thing that you love, and then business is business.
Yeah, business is business. I mean, it's nice to have that. And I think the cool thing is there is a lot of crossovers with the bow hunting world. I meet a lot of business owners in general, but like heavy machinery business owners or like hydraulics or something like that. And it's just like, it's cool to see the other concept, the other side of it, the world of, not us online folk.
Well, you do a really good job of actually networking. Like I met you at a networking event.
Yeah.
And I hear that you go to a lot of things, and we've had lots of crossover with groups of people that we know.
I think also it's just like, you get to meet people who think the same, right? Like I had a bit of a transition where I've got so many mates from school still, and I've got mates that I've met through gyms and whatever, but then there's that transition where you're the outsider because of the line of work you're in, not necessarily the outsider, but it's like your mindset starts to shift. And it's not that you're moving away from them, but you no longer fit in the circle. And so it's like those masterminds are really cool because you get to just have those conversations with people that are really fulfilling for you. And also meet people where they're at in the same level of you with your business journeys, and you can help people out. Like what I love is in that event that we went to, that we met at of Angers, was like, there was 20 people. And the concept of the day was, how can we help each other today? Like, how can we literally walk away from today and have all these elements of gold that we can go and step ahead with, which is really cool. I think it was, it's pretty cool. Like as a value prop.
I love being in the same room with someone who was where you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And they're just like, you present all of your problems to them, and it's like, oh, that's easy. You just do this. You're
it's like, wow, your biggest problems, they're like smallest thought. They're like, why?
It's actually really like, it's mind blowing just to see how their journey is. And then you can watch them and what they did to get where they are and like follow their pathway.
Definitely. Living off the shoulders of giants.
When did like the networking thing become a big thing for you?
I mean, I even used to do it a little bit when I was doing when we were running the nutrition business. It was like, okay, we joined a mastermind. Essentially, it was like with other business owners. But on top of that, we would go to a lot of events within the CrossFit world to keep meeting our new audience, essentially. Like, how can we meet more gym owners to do more gym challenges? How can we meet our next retreat people that are going to come along to the retreats and whatever else? Like, essentially, it was just an element of networking. It's like the more you your network is your net worth, right? It's something that commonly gets said. But I think a big mistake people make, and it's probably like something I did as a mistake from word go, was like, how can I meet someone to sell them my stuff? And it's like, no. How can you meet someone and just be a good human and hang out with good people, and then opportunities start to come? I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, if it's not them directly, it might be someone they know or an introduction or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I lead with now is when I talk to people in networks, like, who do you sell to? Who can I introduce you to if they ever come to me and they're looking for that problem to be solved? And I feel like, it's interesting. When we started our nutrition business, I had a friend come up to me and said, I had to unfollow your business because you were just everywhere. I'm like, hold up. Like, it's not a really friendly thing to do, right? As a friend, shouldn't you be like liking everything we do? And so I'm like, I don't know. My concept is now, how can I help everyone? How can I really provide value for everyone I'm meeting? Yeah.
Is that because you were just like on socials everywhere? Or?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, our marketing he was target market, so he was seeing it all the time.
Yeah. Well, at least you know it's working.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. The last event that I went to, I sat next to James Shremko, and I told James about the story of one of the very first like real networking, or not networking, but real business events that I went to. Was his business down in Sydney. And I remember rocking up and just having so many thoughts of doubt. Like, what are you even doing here? Like, I was shitting myself walking up the stairs into that business room of all these business owners. Like, oh. And then I saw James Rose, who runs Contents there. And I ran into him. I'm like, no way. And he was a dude that I used to coach at CrossFit. And then we just, like, it was just like a familiar face that was just like that. It's all good. Like, we're here. And it's all right. They're just humans. But yeah, I told James about that and we had a laugh. But yeah, that was like a real, not even a turning point for me. It's where I've met a lot of people that now you see often in these rooms. It's like, they are just
normal people doing normal things.
Exactly. Trying to achieve good things.
It's funny, like people that you idolize or look up to in your niche or in a particular area. You might listen to, like, you would be a prime example of this in the bow hunting industry, right? Like people would listen to your podcast religiously and like idolize you in some way, shape or form. And then they meet you and you're just like an everyday dude with 2 kids. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it is so interesting when you meet those people too, because they do exactly that. They're like, oh my God. And you're like, hey bro, how you going? I helped, my friends actually did like a beginner's bow hunting course, and I helped them sell it out. And then I rocked up for the event. I wasn't meant to be there, and I rocked up, and these guys were like, "Oh my God, like, what?" And then I'm like, I'm just a dude." Yeah.
But that's so much love. Like, like to have that is so cool.
Yeah, definitely.
To be like, okay, helped you out with this, and here we are.
Yeah, it's cool, and I think it's obviously you respect people that help you, which is cool. And it's like I took so much stuff from, I mean, all the people that we share rooms with now. It's like I'm constantly trying to learn. And even the last, like that dinner that we had, it just sent me on this whole rabbit hole of like, okay, how do we move forward within this investing world and doing that side?
And it's funny how small of a conversation that seemed like.
It was.
Do you know what I mean? Like it was, we just 5-10 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
But now it's completely changed the trajectory.
Exactly.
And like, you know what you want to do.
We were like, how can we help each other? Like what's one good bit of content you've listened to recently? And that just sent me on this rabbit hole. I'm like, wow.
Crazy, hey?
Yeah.
And that's the importance of having the right people around you and
Definitely,
being in those mentor groups. And
definitely.
Have you ever got, like, obviously you do the networking stuff and get to meet these people in the room, but have you ever had like a paid mentor or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, a few different times we've gone down that rabbit hole, and it's always worked well. It's actually something I've been thinking about again recently, like, okay, building structure out and doing something differently. Like, essentially, I put myself in the same hole of working for trading my time for money, not hourly time. Like, I do task-based work and I can get a lot done, but I'm like, okay, well, how do we now build this into a bigger, better business? And is copywriting even the thing that I want to do? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to battle with that journey, like especially like because you did it with the nutrition stuff. You're like, do we really want to do this anymore? Then you get to copywriting and you're at the top of your game, but AI comes in and like something disrupts, and you're just kind of like, do I really love this? Do I really want to continue doing it?
Yeah, I think it's like, okay, what is the future of this? And I know there's always going to be a need for it in general. But yeah, it is just an interesting thought that I've had every once in a while. It's like, okay, is there a next step? And I think there's the desire to run a business of some sort again, but I really want to make sure it's the right thing.
Yeah. Chasing that net. It's not even a chase, but just like
being aware, open to opportunities,
taking time to process what you actually want to do with your time, and focusing it. Because anyone can build. I don't know if it's Hormozy, but someone had this really great quote. It's like, it takes the same effort to build $1 billion business as it does to $1 million business, and it's just like
definitely
100%. Like focus on one thing and or something that you love, and just make it a big business. You don't have to try and find the next 10 things that you got to work on, and they're all small.
I think it was last October I talked to like maybe 3 agency owners because I was like, cool, I'm building an agency, like that's the next thing. And they all hated what they'd built. And it was like a real deterrent for me. I'm like, I don't want to be there in 6 months' time. So I just kept doing the things I was doing. I'm like, and just really made me just sit and think. And do you know Andrew Huberman?
Yeah.
Like the stuff he talks about all the time is like, how can you just sit still, close your eyes and think? Give yourself like 10 minutes of thinking time in complete sentences. And it's crazy the things that come to mind, right? It's like we're just so connected. Like we're always on our phone. We're always listening to something. You're always watching something. You never give yourself that thinking time anymore. So that's also very powerful. It's like, okay, it's being purposeful with what you're going to do next.
Yeah. What's next for you?
That's the thing. I guess it's the course is the big next thing for me.
Yeah, okay.
I'll try and launch that as soon as possible.
Well, we'll have to give the listeners a link when it comes up, mate. But thanks for coming on to the potty.
Appreciate it, man. Looking forward to next weekend.
Being a machine. Yeah, me too. I'm very excited, actually.
Yeah. No, appreciate your time, bro.
Let's go shoot some goats.
Yeah. In the nicest way possible.
That was good.